Is part 2 of the toxins and your health conversation. So it should be coming up on your screens here so you can see it. Thank you for everyone's patience as usual with our WebEx issues. I think we're good to go now. Can everybody hear me is the most important thing, because I know last time we had some issues with that. Okay, Kimberly's good. Can you use those emojis, guys? Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Michelle. And Kay, you're good? All right, excellent, excellent. All right, very good. Well, since we're getting started a little bit late, I'm gonna just jump right into it so as to not hold you guys up. I'm going to maximize this just to make it a little bigger for you. Okay. All right, so here we go. Okay. It's not wanting me to advance the slides here. All right, sorry guys, hold on. There we go. Okay. All right, so we're gonna just pick back up where we left off with number 8 on our list. All right, so these are the perfluorinated chemicals. Usually you see these abbreviated as PFCs, but usually it's PFAS. That's kind of a common abbreviation. In fact, you've probably seen PFAS in the news a lot lately. So I'll kind of get into that a little bit, but that's the main category of them. There's hundreds of these that fall within these categories. So PFAS and PFC are kind of the general category. You may have heard these called forever chemicals. That's kind of the buzzwords that you hear in the news and see in headlines. And this is because they don't break down easily in the body or in the environment. So they accumulate over time. The half-life in humans is about 3 to 8 years, but in the environment, it's indefinite. So half-life basically means the amount of time that it takes for half of its biological activity to stop. Then that's usually how they age various chemicals. So we don't even know. We don't even know how long they will remain there. But there are at least 25 different types of just these PFAS or PFAS. And that doesn't include the other PFCs. Another issue is that they can travel long distances and thus they exist globally. So even in places where they are not part of manufacturing processes, they can still end up in those geographic locations. Common use is non-stick. So any product that has a non-stick coating, like cookware, for example, or anything stain resistant. So like boots, you can buy shoes that are stain resistant, that sort of thing. So this is usually PFCs or PFAS. In 27 states in America, it appears that people are drinking water contaminated with it. So this is about half of the states in the US, with about 15 million Americans living in those states. If you want to dig into that a little bit more, there is actually a map that you can find. If you literally just Google United States PFAS map, you can see the distribution of where they have found PFAS in every state in this country. So it's a really good way to kind of find out. And then even then they'll sort of tell you, where is this at? In this case, in this part of Virginia, they have only been found on military bases. So this is a good thing. So that means it's not in the general water supply. It's not in your municipal water and that sort of thing. So unless you live on a military base, you're at least not getting the water exposure there. But the CDC did a survey, did blood samples from multiple people, and of the people that they sampled, I don't know how many there were, but it was probably close to what the numbers were in this drinking water study. In all of these blood samples, they found multiple PFAS. Okay, so not just one kind. Remember, there's 25 different possibilities here, but multiple ones were found. So clearly, even without the drinking water factor, they're still in our systems. So you can see here, besides the nonstick cookware and the stain resistance I already mentioned, they're also found in various other products. One application is grease proofing. So they make it to where, like a bag, a paper bag, a fast food bag, they will coat these bags with the PFCs or the PFAS to keep the grease from being absorbed into the paper. So if you've ever gotten like chips, probably from the Mexican restaurant, you know, the bag, the to-go bag they put them in, stuff like that. Microwave popcorn, same deal. And if you look inside of a popcorn bag, you can sort of see it. You can see this like lining that's inside. So that's what that is. Okay. And then, yeah, pretty much any food you get from fast food, especially if it's got like French fries or anything greasy in it, that's going to be in those bags. Dental floss is one, which I was actually surprised about. This is one I didn't know. I don't know if this is universal to all types of dental floss. That's something you might want to explore further depending on what you use. But that was not one I was aware of. So I will be following up on that personally. Anything waterproof or windproof, as far as clothing goes, outdoor gear like tents and backpacks, same deal. They've got to make them waterproof. Drinking water, as we already sort of talked about. Contaminated food, which is namely going to be fish and dairy products. It's another, this is another chemical that's stored in animal fat. Firefighting foam and gear. This is a big one because it has been found that firefighters have significantly higher than average cancer rates due to being exposed to these chemicals. And these are just these chemicals. There's other things that firefighters are also exposed to occupationally, but PFAS and PFCs have been, it's in the gear that they're wearing, it's in the hoses, and plus they are released when these chemicals that are used to put the fire out are sprayed. So on multiple levels are they exposed. You can see kind of like last week, you're going to keep seeing a lot of these same things over and over again. Okay, so, you know, the metabolism disruption, the thyroid disruption, the endocrine disruption, the cancer rates, particularly kidney, prostate, and testicular have been linked to PFAS. All right, so next is going to be arsenic. So arsenic is another heavy metal. So last week we talked about lead. This is sort of its the other one, the other more abundant of the heavy metals. So this one naturally occurs in the Earth's crust. So it's widely distributed in the environment. So we don't even have to be contributing to this. We don't even have to be releasing arsenic into the Earth because it's already there. It's found in plant and animal tissues, or on the organic version. So there's organic and inorganic. So organic in living things, which is essentially what organic means, carbon-based life form, so anything living. And then an inorganic arsenic is the more toxic form. So this is what's found in the groundwater. It comes out of rocks. It's in the soil. So it's part of the natural composition of these things. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. You know, that unfortunately sometimes just because it's from the earth doesn't mean it won't kill us type thing. That's kind of where we're at here. Food can absorb arsenic from soil, particularly rice. I'm gonna dive into rice here in a little bit to give you a little more information on that. But because obviously things grow in the ground, they're going to pull up whatever is in the soil as well. And this includes nutrients, but can also include these heavy metals. You can see that various body systems can be affected by arsenic, including the neurological system, so the brain and nerves, the lungs, the heart, the blood vessels, the GI tract, the blood, all right, the reproductive system, which because again, every single one of these things that we've looked at, we've probably touched on. In fact, we've definitely touched on all of these systems of the body. So no surprise there. So as I mentioned, arsenic is in the water and soil. Other foods besides rice that can be contaminated are mushrooms. Another one I was surprised about. Also need to investigate further because I love mushrooms and I eat lots of them. Shellfish, seaweed. You know, it is, again, it's in the water. It's in the soil that's underneath the ocean, right? So naturally things that live there can also accumulate it. And then chicken. Specifically chicken. I don't know why. Probably again because chickens as a species eat from the ground a lot. You know, they dig up worms from the ground, they root up plants and eat those, you know, so it could just be that they're constantly like scratching in the dirt. I don't know. Cigarettes do have arsenic. That's kind of like one of those old things that, you know, used to scare me as a kid, you know. You hear about that. Playground materials and decking. All right, so like the wood planks and things that are used on decks, pesticides and fertilizers, and then industrial waste. Once again, laundry list of side effects. Skin, lung, and bladder cancers are the prominent cancers here. Your general oxidative stress, which of course increases your inflammation, which eventually will contribute to disease development. We have insulin resistance and diabetes. Gout, I think that's the first for this list of these things that we've been talking about. I think this is the first time we've seen gout. So apparently that's linked to arsenic, so that's interesting. More reproductive issues, more breathing issues, and mental issues like memory loss, confusion, and sudden behavioral changes. So I do want to talk a little bit about rice because I think this is the most practical application of this and the most practical, again, a very easy way that you can reduce your exposure. Okay, because again, you eat food that comes out of the ground. We need to eat plants. They are good for us for lots of other reasons, right? We have to eat to stay alive. There's that. So rice is something where you can be a little more selective, and it's not very difficult to do. But it is the most heavily contaminated food due to its high absorption of that inorganic arsenic from the soil. It's even worse if rice is grown in the rice paddies because they get both the water contamination and the soil contamination when they flood the fields. So they usually will flood the fields and the water sits there for a while, and so that's more opportunity for the rice to absorb it. Also need to be mindful that products made from rice can be problematic too. So I read something about people eating gluten-free diets sometimes have higher arsenic levels, and in part it's because probably only because they're eating a lot of these gluten-free replacement products like pastas, crackers, and those tend to have rice flour in them. Okay, so just kind of a little interesting aside. But basically what you want to do is you want to rinse your rice first. All right, so just put it in a colander, rinse it really well for a couple of minutes. You can also use more water than necessary when you cook it. So normally it's a 2-to-1 ratio, so you could go a little over that, and then just drain off the extra water. I know it's kind of unorthodox as far as a cooking method, and I don't think it impacts the texture too much, but it really does make a big difference. Studies actually show it could reduce that inorganic arsenic by 30%. So to me, that's significant enough to take a couple extra minutes to make a practice of that when you're cooking rice. I also read that it is not advised to feed babies rice cereal every single day because, as we've seen with some of these other chemicals we've discussed, children are highly susceptible. So we don't want to increase exposure with things like that. So not to say they can't have it, but it should not be a staple of their diet. You need to rotate with other infant appropriate foods. So here's kind of a little buying guide for you in terms of what to buy. The lowest arsenic levels, which have roughly half of the other types. So again, pretty significant. American grown sushi rice. Mainly you want to look for California, Pakistan, or India as the countries of origin. And they have to tell you where it's grown. That's just food import law, all right? So you will be able to find out by reading the bag or the box, but California, Pakistan, and India are what you want to look for. It may also say like the Himalayas or something like that. That's fine too. Okay, same geographic location, so that's fine. Wild rice is good. It's actually not technically rice, but close enough that it matters. And then the brand Lundberg Farms is an American brand that has very high standards for their arsenic levels in their rice. They have it all third-party tested, and actually their amount, which is less than, I think they said 0.3 parts per million or something like that, lower than even the European standards. And most of us know that Europe has much stricter standards for multiple things regarding food production, things they allow in their environment and that sort of thing. So for them to be better than European standards, to me, that's impressive. If it was better than American standards, meh. I'm not impressed by that, but Europeans, yes. So that's a good brand to look for, and it's ubiquitous. You can pretty much find it in any grocery store, so it's very easy to find. In terms of the highest levels, brown rice grown anywhere else than where I mentioned, it has up to 80% more arsenic than white versions. And this is a lot to do with the fact that brown rice is not stripped of the like the fiber part on the outside. So there's more arsenic clinging to the actual rice grains. So, so as long as your brown rice is grown in Himalayas, California area, you're good to go. Avoid any rice grown in Arkansas, Texas, or Louisiana. And I was sort of surprised by this, but in the testing that was done, the worst brand was the Whole Foods store brand, the 365 Everyday. I think it was just their white basmati rice. So maybe it's grown in one of those states. I don't know. That was not mentioned, but that would be my guess. So stay away from that one and then look for that Lundberg Farms. Okay, so the last toxin we're going to cover is what are called VOCs. So I'll refer to them as this because it's a lot shorter than volatile organic compounds. This is a massive category of things. Okay, so these are gases that they are emitted from either a solid or a liquid that will evaporate easily at room temperature. Okay, so this is so many different things. And I do want to say that not all of them are automatically harmful. And I'll give an example. I'll get into that a little bit more, but I do want to just say that. So when we're talking about these things, we're referring to the ones that are. They're in both indoor and outdoor air, but indoors they can be much more concentrated, which makes sense, right? After you've done anything in your house like painting or stripping paint or varnishing, anything where you're applying chemicals to anything, that is going to increase by up to 1,000 times. Okay, so your exposure is significantly higher at that point, which is why, you need to open windows when you're painting or, make a point to not be at home for a while while the paint's drying, whatever, stuff like that. Most of them are man-made, but some do occur naturally. And as I mentioned, some are not harmful at all. Some are harmful on their own, and others have to interact with other VOCs or other gases. So sometimes some kind of reaction is required. It just really depends. So the most common VOCs that you're going to hear about and that you've probably heard of are formaldehyde, benzene, and toluene. All right, so formaldehyde, of course, is used in embalming fluid. It's in all kinds of paints and other things. Benzene is in certain types of torches. I mean, there's all kinds of applications for these. Toluene is in nail polish, among other things. But VOCs are responsible for what's called ozone pollution, and they do this through a reaction. So they react with nitrogen oxides, and this ozone pollution is actually the most widespread form of air pollution. So again, it's these chemical reactions that are occurring in the air that are causing them to be pollutants. A lot of things that they're found in. Again, your fragranced items. So if we go back to week 1, thinking about those phthalates, they're also going to have these VOCs, especially anything you burn, like a candle. All right. Air fresheners of any sort, whether they are plugged in or sprayed, because it's in the air, any kind of aerosol spray as well. So it's going to be in those things. Your household cleaners, cheap furniture, so like cheap particle board furniture, or they call it MDF, which is like compressed wood, basically. Usually it's the type of furniture you have to assemble. I'm talking to you, IKEA, because I think IKEA uses a lot of this MDF stuff. So it's in there. It's in your paints and varnishes, cosmetics, nail polish in particular. Art supplies, dry cleaning. So the solutions they use in dry cleaning have VOC. So when you get your clothes back from there, they're emanating those into your house and your lungs. Glues and adhesives. So anything sticky that makes things stick. Liquid whiteout, permanent markers, gasoline, right? And if we're going through these lists, most of these things have kind of a strong smell, right? Nail polish is kind of stinky. Gasoline obviously has a very strong smell. So anything that has a super strong smell to it probably is VOCs. Okay, just to kind of simplify it down as a way to remember that. Anything that smells is a VOC. So you can see various mental issues here like anxiety and depression, mood swings. Oh, I said that twice. Whoops. That's okay. Developmental delays in children. Once again, endocrine disruption. I'm pretty sure we've hit that one on every single one of these respiratory issues. We've got tingling in the extremities, motor dysfunction, you know, so like not being able to pick up something all of a sudden, or your legs not wanting to walk or something like that. Various cancers, compromised immune systems, headaches, and insomnia. Okay, so I want to jump into detoxification a little bit. This is going to just be a quick review for most of you, but a quick 101 for those of you who are new to hearing this. Anyone who's attended our Body Systems Summit, or any of our, pretty much anything that we talk about, we bring up detoxification. So, but it occurs through a variety of different systems in your body. All right, so your skin, of course, which sweat is your #1 detoxifier. The cardiovascular system, so, you know, the blood being cleaned and, you know, it carrying it back to where it needs to go. You have your respiratory system, so you can exhale things like CO2. The liver, of course, which we'll dive into in a second. The spleen, kind of an underrated organ, but it produces white blood cells to help fight off things, which is part of detoxification as well. We also have the kidneys and the colon. So the colon is kind of the final elimination of waste products from what we ingest. All right, so we're gonna focus on the liver for a minute because it is kind of the most powerful of our detoxifying organs. It's certainly not the only one, as you saw, but it's really got a big job. Okay, so it can really help eliminate the damage caused by these things. So this happens in 2 phases. #1 is what's called biotransformation. So this is where the liver takes these various harmful substances, toxins, and multiple other things, and breaks them down into these small components. All right, these small components are usually also toxic. So that's why this is a 2-part process. Okay, so they have to be converted in the second phase. This is performed pretty much by liver enzymes. Okay, so your liver secretes enzymes which are made of proteins, and these enzymes also help you break down the food that you're eating. So they have multiple jobs here, but they play a large role in this phase 1 with trying to break down these harmful substances into small components that it can then deal with a little more effectively. During this phase also, they form what are called binding sites. So binding sites are things on a chemical or on a molecule that allow it to bind to other molecules, hence its name, binding site. So usually things need to be added to these compounds to neutralize or to stabilize them. So these binding sites will allow these components. So that's what happens in phase 2. This is called conjugation. Conjugate means to add to something. So these little components are conjugated by various things, various proteins, various, you know, there's all kinds of players in this. But again, they're either going to neutralize them and make them completely harmless, or stabilize them to avoid whatever chemical reaction they're going to cause. Okay, so they're either repurposed at this point and turned into something else and sent to other organs for use, or they're eliminated from the body through any of these other mechanisms, you know, the skin, the colon, etc. So there's all kinds of different pathways at play here. I'm not going to get into the biochemistry of it. That could be a whole other hour of discussion that you'd sleep through. So I'll spare you. But essentially, things like the glutathione pathway and the methylation pathway, these remove your excess heavy metals. All right. So if we're holding on to excess arsenic or lead or what have you, or mercury, those are the pathways that are going to remove that. If we have extra estrogen floating around, which, you know, based on what we've been talking about over the past couple of days here, we're being exposed to a lot of exogenous sources of estrogen, right? A lot of outside sources. So we need to be able to get rid of that in some way. Our body needs to process that. So that is what sulfation does. So again, lots of different pathways that do various things, but those are just a couple of examples of how that works in the context of what we're talking about. So this is sort of a little demonstration on how these things go through these phases and all of the different nutrients that are required. I actually stole this from my liver presentation from the Body System Summit because it's such a good representation of what's going on. So again, you have your toxins, okay, and they are absorbed into the liver because they're fat soluble, so they can enter into the liver. So this is step one or phase one, and we need all these nutrients here. All right, we're going to talk a little later in this presentation about how to support this with these nutrients, about how to get what to eat essentially to help your liver be efficient at this process. And then we have phase two. All right. So again, we have our breaking down of the toxin into a smaller component. Then we have either neutralization or stabilization, as in turning it into something not harmful anymore. Lots of nutrients involved here. And then we have our waste products. Those are now water soluble, so they can be eliminated from the body through all of these things which produce water, right? Water from the kidneys, which becomes urine. You have water coming through the digestive tract as well. So water is kind of the carrier to get rid of it. And you know what the toxins are. Another player in this detoxification is the gut microbiome, which those of you who know me know this is one of my favorite things to talk about ever. But I'll restrain myself from the rest of what I know and love about it. But they are big helpers with this detoxification pathway, okay, that the liver has to do. So these microorganisms living in our digestive system can also help. They specifically help during phase two. So remember how I was saying that the body needs to add on something to these things to neutralize and eliminate them. So some of these things are secreted by our gut bacteria. So they can actually assist the liver with producing the compounds that are needed for this. They also help to eliminate the toxins through the feces, right? The microbiome helps to dictate the frequency of bowel movements, sorry to be gross, but the texture and the things that make it healthy. It all relies on the microbiome, okay? They also protect the small intestine from absorbing some of these toxins because they make the barrier stronger, essentially. Like I said, it supports that. It's called the mucosal layer, which is the barrier between your inside of your intestines and the outside or the rest of your body, essentially. So they will sequester these chemicals. They'll turn them into less harmful compounds, and this reduces the tax on the liver. So it makes the liver have to do less work. So it's a very symbiotic little relationship that they have. And so it's very important that we have adequate populations of these gut bacteria so that they can help the liver. So then it's no surprise then that people who have a lot of issues related to their digestion, who have what's called dysbiosis, which is where you have an imbalance of your gut bacteria, they have liver issues a lot because they're compensating for each other all the time. But particularly the gut will kind of exhaust itself trying to help the liver. So very important that this is supported. Some examples of what they do are converting that toxic inorganic arsenic into the organic, less toxic form. Okay, so that's one thing. Lactobacillus, which are very, very common. They're very abundant in the human colon. That's what's in most of your fermented foods like yogurt and such. So we have lots of these in there if we have a good, healthy gut. But they will bind to heavy metals and prevent their absorption. So they protect the small intestine from absorbing those heavy metals. There's also some really interesting research on phthalates, that gut bacteria might be able to pull those phthalates, which again are those things found in your scented, like your fragrance products, your perfumes and such, from the colon. But we need human models. They actually studied this in, I think it was carp fish. But in the carp fish, these certain bacteria species were able to filter some of that out. Carp would naturally probably have a lot of phthalates in their blood because they're fish and, again, bioaccumulation. So we need some human models, but it looks like they may be able to help with that too. Unfortunately, the microbiome can be compromised. So if we're excessively exposed to these toxins, that they're only expected to handle a certain amount, right? A certain toxic load, as the term goes. So if they're being excessively exposed to these things on top of a poor diet that isn't supporting their population and their health, because they are a population, this is like a whole universe inside your body, right? And so what we eat, they eat. And if you're not giving them the proper fuel, they're going to be weak and sick and not reproduce and die. So this is kind of a double whammy when you combine that with this exposure to these toxins. All right, so let's stop with all the doom and gloom and this, all these horrible things that are happening. What can we do? Let's find out what we can actually do, right? The number one thing is to support that detoxification. All right, so you can see there's a whole list of things you can do with your diet. Some of these foods are particularly supportive of that, like cruciferous vegetables. They provide some of the things that the liver needs for these two phase 1 and 2 pathways. You can choose low mercury fish. Wild caught is going to usually be a better option. In fact, I can't think of too many examples where it wouldn't be a better option. So use that chart that I gave you in week 1 that shows you the different mercury content of the fish. Choose those lower arsenic rice varieties and brands. And other grains are also low in arsenic. So like quinoa, buckwheat, millet, you don't need to worry about arsenic in those. They, for whatever reason, have not been shown to have that same absorptive tendency. So those are good alternatives to rice as well. Definitely organic meats and dairy products, because remember that pesticides and some of these other things will store in animal fat. So if they're organic, it's supposed to mean that they are not exposed to these pesticides because they're not eating feed or grass or whatever that has been treated with pesticides. Okay, so just keep in mind that fat storage thing. Definitely the organic dirty dozen produce. If you really want to be hardcore about it, you can eat everything organic. I know Connie and I disagree on this a little. I think she's a little more team like everything organic than I am. If it's affordable for you, absolutely. Organic is definitely cheaper than it used to be. So there is that. That used to be a reason that a lot of people couldn't do that. So that's your choice, of course. But definitely, if nothing else, make a priority to eat those dirty dozen produce items, which again were covered in week 1. So if you might want to go back and refer to that. But anything on that list, you do need to buy organic. Citrus fruits are great detoxifiers. Any kind of nuts and seeds. Make sure your eggs are free range, pasture raised, farm type eggs. Green tea is a great one. Lots of antioxidants in there. And then to support the gut bacteria, you need fiber to feed them and fermented foods to help actually increase their population. So they live inside these, it's yogurt and sauerkraut and kimchi and kombucha. So these are living foods that actually contain these organisms, and you can ingest them and they will, add to the population. It's like building a new town for people to move to. It's like that. So you want to invite them, and you need to make a good environment for them by giving them fiber, because that is their main food source. Limit your alcohol intake. If you're smoking, definitely stop, and that includes vaping. A lot of people think vaping is safer, but it's really not. I mean, you want to talk about VOCs. I didn't even mention that in there, but yeah. Sweating, because again, the skin is one of our biggest detoxifying organs. So you can achieve that with exercise. You can also do infrared or dry sauna, like the one that we have at CFit. I love that. I'm still in there 2 times a week, and I don't know, maybe it's just me. It's probably a mental thing, but I swear I just feel that. I feel it like leaving my body. So lots of other benefits to that too, but yeah, that's an easy way. And then you get to just sit there and sweat and not have to do much else. And then there's various supplements you can look into. These are just some examples. Always check these against your medications. Make sure that none of these herbs will interact with anything that you're taking or cause any particular issues for you. But milk thistle is a great one for the liver. This one is probably the most studied. So if you want to really look at clinical studies, milk thistle has some great information. Okay, so next thing we can do is minimize plastic. So switching over to other materials is going to be a good start. So literally anything else, okay? Stainless steel, glass, bamboo, whatever. But start replacing your Tupperware and your old Rubbermaid things that you keep using over and over again, which I am also guilty of. My husband gives me a hard time. He's like, I don't think these are supposed to be used. for 5 years. And I'm like, yeah, but he's right. They're not. They break down over time. So the older they are, the worse they probably are. Okay. Also keeping in mind that if you still have your Tupperware from like the 70s, like your mom's Tupperware, those could have some of the chemicals in them that are now banned. So another thing to think about. So older is not better in this case. Okay. Start upgrading. Somebody asked about water bottles. I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry. I think it might have been Kimberly, but I wanted to throw these up there for that. Really look at your water bottles. These are a couple of brands that I like. There are probably countless others out there. I also love this reusable bags from Stasher. They're made of silicone. And they're safe for the dishwasher. You can put them in the oven. I mean, you can like sous vide cook in these things. So I'm a huge fan of those. That's what I use. I don't use any plastic bags. No, there's no Ziploc bags. I use these, and they're pretty much indefinitely usable. So it's an investment, of course. But again, you can use them over and over again. So honestly, you're probably not spending any more money than you would spend buying boxes of Ziploc bags over time. You know what I mean? Like if you did the math, it probably evens out. So definitely some ones to check out. Replace all of your nonstick cookware, especially if the stick is starting to wear off. Like if it's starting if you're seeing wear spots, okay, that means that lining is breaking down and that's releasing even more into the food. So definitely replace them if that's the case. You can do stainless steel, you can do ceramic, cast iron, literally anything but nonstick. Take your own bags to the store, of course. Especially anything that's going to touch like your food, like your fruit and vegetables. I won't even use the little plastic bags for those. I have other bags. So I have my big reusable grocery bags, and then I have smaller produce bags that I will put my peppers or Brussels or whatever vegetables are sold loose. You can just put them in there. All right. So I won't even use the little ones. So always take your own bags. And then things that you do have to buy in plastic, because I mean, let's face it, there's an infinite number of things that come in plastic. It's not like you can go and open the container and dump it into your own container at the grocery store. Like you can't do that. So anything that you have to buy in plastic, and if you're able to, remove them from those containers and put them in some, like a glass jar or something like that, and then just label. I mean, I can't even say that I've done this. Things that are kept in the refrigerator may not be as big of an issue because you don't have that heat element. I'm just playing devil's advocate, as if you don't want to overhaul your entire refrigerator. Like don't freak out and think that you have to do this. But again, over time, you could also do that. You could just establish a collection of mason jars or whatever, and use them for these types of things. So if you're able to take them out of the plastic when you get home, definitely do so. But at the very least, avoid heating food in any type of plastic. All right, so as we talked about in week 1, I think it was the first toxin, which was BPA, the bisphenols. Those are activated by heat. All right, so any of the chemicals that are in that plastic are being activated when you turn on that microwave. Okay, this, by the way, includes paper coffee cups. They are still lined with a plastic that leaches out. So I don't know if they say on the bag, on the cup, not to microwave them. I feel like they do say that. I'm not really sure. I don't use them that much. But regardless, I would not. Okay, so don't reheat your Starbucks in the cup. Like dump it into a mug and do it that way. Styrofoam, I like put that in bold because I cannot emphasize enough. Do not heat styrofoam. I have a scary little anecdote, but I, until recently, worked in a hospital, and of course they still use styrofoam takeout containers. I mean, it's still kind of the gold standard, unfortunately. And I cannot even tell you how many people that I know that worked in that hospital who would put the styrofoam in the microwave and heat up their food, and I would just cringe. In fact, one of the people I knew well enough to say, hey, you don't want to do that. But yeah, do not ever put styrofoam. Don't let it get hot. Okay. If you can avoid it, even better. But again, it's still pretty much every restaurant's go-to. If a restaurant will allow it, ask if you can bring your own container in and take your leftovers home in that. You know, yeah, you might feel like I'm the crazy lady, but whatever. I mean, I'm okay with that. I've reached a point in life where I'm okay with that. I don't really care what other people think. So, if your ego will allow and the restaurant owners are okay with it, try to take your own container for takeout. There is a very cool store in Ghent. It's also online, but this is a store that basically is a no use or like no plastic store. So everything that they sell is made of some of these other, like a sustainable material of some sort, or it's in bulk and you bring your own containers and fill them up. So they sell like laundry detergent and you know, various cleaning stuff. They have they've got like shampoo. I mean, all of so you literally just, you know, they have dispensers and you fill up your little shampoo bottle or whatever you got. So it's very cool. And then they also sell like bamboo toothbrushes, you know, things that can replace some of your plastic items. So that's a cool little spot to check out. You know, it may not be practical for everything that you buy, but I think it's definitely worthwhile. So having said that, same deal with food, anywhere where you can buy food in bulk. So I don't mean Costco. I don't mean that kind of bulk. I mean like if you go to Whole Foods or somewhere where they have the big stacked dispenser things of like nuts and dried fruit and oats and that's what I'm talking about. Same deal. Take your own containers. Some stores might not allow it, so you may have to fill a plastic bag. But again, when you get home, you can dump it into your jars or whatever you got. So that's always a good option to help you use a little bit less plastic. And then clothing, there is plastic of various types in a lot of clothing materials, so synthetic fabrics in particular. It's hard to avoid some of these because stuff like Lycra, they put it in denim now so that they're stretchy and they fit better. So you know, but minimize the synthetics for sure. Try to buy sustainable or recycled stuff. That's kind of a thing that we're seeing now. People making recycled clothes from recycled materials. And you know, going vintage is always cool. Like, you know, I always loved a good vintage shop. So I'm not above a thrift store if I need something and don't want to spend a lot of money. So don't underwrite those things because you know, then you're not contributing at least to the manufacturing of the stuff as much. All right, so let's clean house. So number one, if you have no other real take home from this, fragrance free everything. Okay, so there should be nothing scented in your house that is not an essential oil, essentially. So I just buy fragrance free everything, like everything. Verify the scent sources. So as I mentioned in week 1, you know, if it says parfum, that fragrance source is a phthalate, 100% guarantee. If it says, you know, essential oils, you know, or it doesn't say, if it says essential oils, that's easy. But if it doesn't say, I've written to companies before to ask them. So, you know, and you can only hope that they're transparent about it. But so try to verify the scent source. If you're in doubt, buy the fragrance-free version. You can always add your own essential oils. You know, I like to have a little scent to certain things. You know, it may be the case where you don't want no scent, and that's fine, but add your own essential oils to give it that scent. So having said that, avoid plug-ins, wax burners, candles, incense, Febreze, literally any deodorizing spray, cheap essential oils. Don't buy like Walgreens. I do give you a guide about that later, but yeah, so again, all that scented stuff. Check your products. All right, this is kind of a project. This is a good like rainy day project day for y'all to do, okay? Like literally gather all of your bath products, your bathroom stuff, and just kind of make 2 piles, right? Like look at the stuff, make a pile of things that you need to replace, make a pile of things that pass the test, all right? Check all of that stuff. Basically anything that's going to touch your body, any product you put on in your body or stuff that you put on things that touch your body, like your clothing, okay? This is going to be a long game for most of us, right? This is a one at a time sort of replacement because most of us don't have $1,000 lying around to totally overhaul their house. I get that. It's okay, right? One thing at a time. So as you run out of things, or you can prioritize, what do I want to start with? Maybe I'm going to just buy different laundry detergent or whatever. Okay. So over time, that's okay. Don't feel like you have to do it all at once. Make your own cleaning products if you really want to go full hippie like me, and I'm pretty sure my girl Kay probably does this too. But all natural stuff, homemade stuff. There's lots of recipes, as it were, online, on Pinterest. Lots, and most of them are very simple, like vinegar, baking soda, essential oils, like very simple ingredients. So you don't need expensive designer, you don't need to go to Whole Foods and buy expensive products. You can very much make your own stuff.
Jean, let me just add
Yes.
in one site that I think they might like to look at. It's called trulyfreehome.com.
Okay.
And there's a lot of household stuff there. TRULYFREE home, HOME.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Connie. I didn't know about that one myself, so.
Yeah, they have pretty good stuff, and they try to package things minimal, so you're going to use refillable containers, that kind of thing. It comes in a box. You're like, oh my gosh. So it's like a liquid, and you add your own water to it.
Oh, okay.
But they've expanded a lot. There's a lot there to look through. And I'm kind of just joining in a little bit. So I don't know if you talked about the EWG's site.
No,
EWG.
I not specifically, but that is another good one. Yeah, the EWG, the Environmental Working Group. They're the ones who do the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 classification, and they're the ones who do this app I'm going to show you guys in a minute. But that is an excellent resource for information on this kind of stuff. So so those are some places you can start.
Yeah, because a lot of times you can get one product and look it up, and it'll give you a ranking.
Okay, nice. And I imagine that's probably, you can see, when I look at the Think Dirty app, you can see if it looks similar, but I'm guessing they use the same ranking system for that, because it's the same. It's like a 0 through 10 kind of green light, red light kind of deal.
Did you talk about makeup?
Not yet, but I will be.
Okay.
But yeah, that's part of all this. That's part of all this. So like I said, anything that's going to touch your body. So makeup would, definitely would be included in that. But yeah, okay. So yeah, so maybe make some of your own cleaning products, replace any old appliances. And by old, I mean like old, like 70s, anything older than like 1980, you probably need to replace if it still works, which it might. So just in case you have any old like blenders or something that you're still using, you might want to look at that. And then obviously avoid storing things like paint, these other kind of VOCs in your living spaces. So don't keep, like, if you opened a paint can and you only painted half the bathroom and you didn't finish and you just kind of left the can there, like, try to remove it. Okay, so I did go and look at some various air and water filters for you guys. I mean, I'm not getting into prices here, and they, these are going to be varying in terms of like the space that they're for. Some of them are going to be for larger spaces, some will be for smaller. So I'm going to let y'all kind of do your own research there. But these were the most highly ranked overall. I actually just got this Homedics 5-in-1. I'm actually going to set it up when I get off here. But it got really good reviews for one that's relatively affordable. That's good for a house. And Livoit, or I don't know how you say that, but that they have several models. So some of these brands will have different models for different size spaces or whatever. So, but again, these were kind of the best ranked overall. And then the water filters, same deal. These are the highest ranked, but they have different, like some of them are pitchers, some of them are faucet mounts, some of them are for a whole house. So I guess you would hook them up to your pump. This one is a countertop, so again, it's really going to depend on what your needs are and, what kind of what your existing water situation is like, are you drinking your tap water or not? That kind of thing. So again, you guys can kind of research based on what your needs are, but this Pure Advanced one, this is a faucet mount filter and it's certified for 71 contaminants. So I feel like that's pretty good. And while I didn't list them here, most of the ones that we have discussed were within those 71. So that one seems like a pretty good bet, and it's not super expensive. So that might be a good one to look into if you're looking for a faucet, one for your faucet. Okay, and then kind of like some other tips, thoroughly wash all your produce, whether it's organic or not. I just think that's a good practice, because even, like for example, I grow a garden. I call it organic because I do not spray it with anything. However, I also live in an agricultural zone and things around me are grown and sprayed. So I really can't guarantee that it's free of any residue or pesticide. It's certainly not certified. So just to kind of cover all my bases, I still wash this, even the stuff I grow. Again, you don't need any expensive product. You can literally just dissolve baking soda in warm water and soak your produce for a few minutes. It's very easy. Wash all of your new clothes. So don't wear anything off the rack. All right, you need to take it home unless it's like an emergency, where you like really need it for some reason. But in general, take it, wash it home, take it home, wash it before wearing anything. Try to avoid dry cleaning. I don't dry clean anything. I don't care what the tag says. I just don't do it. So unless you absolutely have to, just don't do it. Take your shoes off when you go into your house. This is something I've been trying to be more mindful of. It does reduce the lead exposure significantly because you're literally not tracking in the lead that's in the dirt that's on your shoes. So it's, again, just a very simple thing. Plus your carpets are cleaner, so maybe a little less vacuuming or a little less, kids tracking in stuff or whatever. So, yeah, so maybe start doing that. Maybe start making a practice of taking off your shoes. A lot of other cultures do this also as a means of like grounding yourself. Like when you get home, you kind of like reground and kind of earth yourself. So another little bonus. Definitely only use high quality essential oils. So these are kind of like the best brands that I'm aware of. And some of them are easy to find. I know like Young Living and doTERRA, those are MLMs, you have to order through other people. But these other ones you can find in like health food stores online, that kind of thing. So these are all tested, third-party tested for purity. They are what they say they are. They actually do the chemistry on them. So make sure you're not buying don't just go to Walgreens or Walmart and buy something that calls itself an essential oil. They're about as regulated as supplements, which means they're not. So there's a lot of false claims and a lot of people are getting away with putting ingredients in there that are not pure. So just know what you're buying. And then you can use apps to help you identify problematic products. I'm going to actually show you guys some of the stuff from the Think Dirty app. I think it's very cool. It's very user friendly and it's got a really good database. So I'm going to kind of show you some examples from there. But the app, this is what the app looks like in the App Store. But it provides overall product ratings and then it breaks down the ingredients to tell you what justifies the rating that they give the product. It has a really nice search feature, so you can search by the brand, you can search by the product name, or even a category. So let's say you want to look at shampoos or, baby products or whatever. It also has a barcode scanner, which is awesome. So you can avoid doing any of that by just scanning the barcode on your product, and if it's not in the database, it'll tell you, and you can actually put it in. I had to do that today actually, but it makes it really easy for you to pull up the thing that you're wondering about. So like if you're shopping and you're wanting to know, is this, where does this product fall on this scale, you can just scan it. Some other cool features it has, it'll give you suggestions by category. So like today when I pulled it up, it was giving me, I think it was hair products, like for curly hair or something. It'll give you seasonal recommendations. So they had like a fall product guide, like for like scented things, I guess, fall scented items. They have shopping guides. They have discount offers on cleaner products. And then they have a list feature, which I thought was the coolest. And I think this would be the most helpful if you're going to start looking at the products in your house and replacing them with other things. You can keep track of those products. So you can make a list of what you need to replace. You can make a list of, this is the clean perfume that I bought and I really liked it. So you can kind of remember what you bought or whatever. So it's got some really nice organization in there to help you in this process of kind of converting things over. Okay, so this is a product I wanted to show you guys. First of all, this is a baby shampoo. So the way that these rank are from 1 to 8, or I'm sorry, from 0, is it 0 to 8 or 0? I think it's 0 to 9. But the higher numbers are going to be red because those have the most, quote, dirty ingredients. Okay, so the higher the score, the worse. So again, this is a product for babies that people put on their babies. And it says baby sensitive. I like that. It's all soft and blue. Like it looks very, benign, right? So what you do is when you see the number of the product, you click the number and then it brings you to this screen here. All right. So it's going to show you how the ingredients break down. Like, so this one has 15 perfectly fine ingredients, 2 sort of questionable ones, and 1 dirty one. And then if you click on ingredients list, you get this over here. So this tells you exactly what those things are. So you can see all the green ones here, and then there's that parfum. Okay. So you can see exactly what it is that's giving it that rating. So I think that's very useful. This is just comparing 2 perfumes. So this is, I keep picking on Chanel. You guys must think I hate Chanel or something. I really don't. It's just the first one that came up. And so I know a lot of people wear it, so I just used it. So this is like the classic Chanel, I think, eau de cologne for women. So this one had an 8, where this is a brand called Pacifica, which this incidentally is like the most delicious perfume ever. And I don't wear perfume. I don't even like it, but I will wear this stuff. I have it in like a roller form because it's so scrumptious. Anyway, it's a 0. So this one has no questionable ingredients. You can buy it at Ulta. It's pretty common. You can find it a lot of places, possibly even drugstores. But this one is very delicious if you like, sort of citrusy perfumes. But so I just wanted to kind of show you like 2 products and how they were on different ends of the thing. Same deal here. This is your secret clinical strength deodorant. It's called Completely Clean, which would make you think it doesn't have any fragrance or anything, but it does. So it gets an 8. This is the brand that I've been using. I have been extremely impressed with it. I've tried a lot of natural deodorants and a lot of them do not work. You just smell like a flowery, funky, dirty person. So this brand is awesome. Bonus, because they also make a completely plastic-free one. So they have a deodorant in like a normal plastic, I don't know, I call it the push pop. You know what I mean? The thing that you push up. But this one is actually made of, it's either paper or cardboard. So I got the plastic-free one. So this is a double bonus. So there's no plastic in it and there's no fragrance or anything else questionable in it. So I'm a huge fan of Native. If you haven't found a good natural deodorant and you don't use them because you think they don't work, I encourage you to try this one because it is a game changer for real. And then this one is to kind of illustrate how products can be different within the same brand. So don't write off brands completely because they may have some okay products and they may have other problematic ones. This one here, you can see this is the Method Coconut Water Hand Soap. And by the way, the only red flag ingredient in this is the fragrance. Aside from this, it's great. So it can very easily ruin the rating just by it having that parfum or that fragrance. And then this is a body wash called Pure Naked. This one is a 3. So, be aware that it can vary in that way as well. Okay, so just to kind of wrap it up and give you these, the take homes for this, toxins are everywhere in the environment. That is true. We cannot avoid being exposed to them. That is also true, but we can reduce our exposure by taking action, right? So we can continue to educate ourselves on these toxins and how they impact our health. We can clean up our diets. All right. As I talked about, there's lots of ways that we can improve what we eat. We can make an effort to eat those detoxifying foods, like I mentioned earlier, support that gut microbiome. All right. So if you think fiber is maybe something you need more of, let's start working on that. If you think fermented foods are probably what's missing from your diet, let's work on that too. Start incorporating, to start finding foods like that you like. Try different brands of yogurt, whatever you need to do, but start getting that gut right. Start replacing products with safer alternatives, as we talked about. We can use air and water filters in our homes. And we can use these other tools like apps that are available to us to help us make smart decisions, because it's impossible to know everything. This takes a lot of the mental anguish out of it. At least it did for me. Just you can't spend 3 hours in the store looking at what's in everything. So we need these things. These things are here to make our lives easier, not more difficult. So I really encourage you to get the app. There may be other ones out there too. This is just the one I'm familiar with personally. Connie mentioned the EWG. They are the ones who created this app. So there probably are others out there, but I'm just kind of a fan of it because it's very simple, and you have that little scanner thing that I think is very easy. So utilize those tools. Remember that the main thing is that this is about empowerment and not fear, right? Being afraid achieves nothing. Being afraid makes us weak, but what makes us strong is taking control, making decisions, making good choices, and deciding that you're not going to accept that, oh, well, there's nothing I can do about this because it's all around me. As I've shown you, that's just simply not true. And I hope that from this, you guys feel empowered. You feel like you have gained that, not just the discretion to identify these things and know where they're found, but also to make those changes in your own life so that you can, if not improve your health, at least prevent some of these problems down the road. Because really, at the end of the day, if we know better, we do better, and that's all there really is to it. So. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes. I can take a couple questions if anybody has one. And don't forget to turn your microphones on.
Hey Jean, this is Michelle.
Hey.
Hey, did you find out anything about the salt water softener and what types of filters might help with that? Or, because I have the well water that I soften with the salt and it's got that residue, and I'm just not sure.
I
haven't-
didn't. The filters the water filters that I talked about, you may want to start with those, because I'm sure that they would list that as being something that they filter out, because I think the different brands have different some of them may have like a different focus, you know what I mean? Like some of them would be more for hard water, but the ones I looked at seemed to be kind of like overall filtration, like just that covered the most chemicals or the most range of things. So I'll be honest, I kind of just forgot about the saltwater aspect of it, but maybe I would start with that and kind of look at some of those and see if you need like a whole house system, for example. Is that where your softener is? Is it on your pump?
Yeah, it's hooked up to the pump. So when it comes from the well, it doesn't even make it to the house without making a way through the salt system.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So maybe look at those couple of whole house systems that were listed on there. That might be a good place to start, because that's probably what you would want. Assuming you want it filtered out of like your shower water and stuff too.
Well, yeah, and I don't know that I'm worried that much about the salt touching my skin. I mean, salt doesn't have to be a terrible thing unless you get it in excessive amounts.
No, not at all.
Drinking it, the flavor, the drinking, just seeing that residue when you put it in your cup.
Right.
It's like ice or whatever. We have a filter on the refrigerator, but there's always that residue, and it's like a salty type residue. So.
Mhm.
So do you have to replace that salt, Michelle?
Yes, we have to fill it
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
It runs down, and then you have to fill it before it gets below a certain level, because you can get to the dirty level, I guess, or whatever. So you never let it get below a certain point before you refill the container.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm very unfamiliar with that whole
Well,
concept.
most of the houses in this neighborhood use that same system.
Huh.
But I don't know that any of my neighbors are as concerned about the toxins or the, and I know that my neighbor right next door, she gets the big jugs of water, like the whole, like you would have a professional cooler in an
Mm-hmm.
office. That's the kind
Mm-hmm.
of water that they have in their house to drink.
Okay.
Um, my neighbor across the street that I see the same people delivering to him, I haven't actually asked him what he does, but that's why I'm saying that's why we just buy cases of bottled water to drink. I don't worry about showering in it. I never really thought that much about it. It's well water with some salt in it. So I feel like it probably doesn't have any more toxins or anything more to worry about. I mean, it's been tested. It's been a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So the
None of
showering
that
part wouldn't really be an issue.
temps.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah, it's
drinking.
more
Yeah.
the drinking and cooking with it that I worry more about.
Hmm. Let me write this down. Okay, for those salt filters.
I would definitely do just a basic test yourself to see where you get. Like I told you,
Especially
I
if
had
it's
some
been a while.
strips. Yeah, I have some strips, but it's very possible that just one of those Brita filters would be sufficient. I wouldn't even completely trust those 5 gallon jugs that you're talking about. I would test those too. You just
Yeah,
don't
Yeah,
I
know.
that's
have
on
I
her.
have those
Filling
at
those
my
with
house,
tap
but I
Yeah,
water.
need to test
that's
them because
that's
that's
on
what we
her.
have.
I just see them get the delivery. I see them put the jugs out and then they get the delivery every day. With me, I buy whatever bottled water I feel like is reasonably priced at the time, which I know is not good, especially I knew that anyway, but just doing this thing, it just kind of brought everything to light again that I need to be more aware of that. Um, that's why I'm trying to figure out if there is some system we can have for the house where not only do we eliminate the toxins, but we also eliminate that salt and the salt residue if it's something that we're going to be drinking. Because this, to me, it's noticeable. My mom doesn't
Yeah.
notice it that much. She grew up on hardcore well water, which I never could drink when I went to my grandma's house when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Those things don't bother her as much, even though I try to bring it to her attention that it could be an issue. She's just like, "Oh, it's fine to me," you know. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, Mom, but not to me. I mean, I literally see the residue in the ice maker. I see the residue in the cups if the water has been sitting for any length of time in a container or anything like that. So, I feel like salt is a better alternative than other chemicals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, salt in and of itself isn't really problematic, but like you said, I mean, in that residue buildup, it's kind of unattractive on your stuff,
Yeah,
right? And tasting it and all that. So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, if nothing else, I mean, there are definitely filters that just like those reverse osmosis filters that's supposed to make water taste really good. So you may need something as simple as that you can just put on your faucet.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well,
but I'd also look at those whole house systems if you're looking to soften all the water in the house, you could look at maybe one of those that you would install it past the salt thing, I guess.
yeah, that's the thing. I just knowing how to install it properly, so I would get the effect that I desire. Um,
Right.
and yeah, I don't want to take up anybody else's time, but I did want to ask you one other question about detox.
Sure.
Um, I've recently come across some information about certain types of fasting
Hmm.
for detoxification, and I didn't know what your thoughts were on that.
Um, the short answer, there's some evidence to support that. That's a little bit more on like a cellular level, the detoxification, but um fasting is, even if it does work, which again there is some evidence that it does, but it kind of comes with a whole other set of caveats and kind of things that you have to consider. I don't recommend that for everyone, and just kind of based, I would really need to know like a bit more about the person essentially and their history before I would recommend doing it or not doing it. But yeah, there is some evidence to support it, but I think in the long run, fasting is a difficult practice to maintain, and I think there's a lot of other more practical ways to do it. Like the
So,
sweating and the, making other changes to your diet as opposed to fasting.
Michelle, are you talking actual fasting or intermittent fasting?
I'm talking about either intermittent fasting or fasting only on certain foods or juices.
No,
for
I
certain
definitely don't
period of time.
recommend juices are not detoxifying. Juices are actually the opposite because the problem is that you're basically drinking fructose, which fructose is the only sugar that's directly processed by the liver. So when if you eat no food and then just drink a bunch of juices, I mean, yeah, you'll probably flush a bunch of things out of your body because of all the water release. So it may be effective in that, but you're also bombarding the liver with sugar. And I'm not into that idea too much either.
Without the
Because that can
fiber,
actually,
and if it's fruit and
exactly.
without the fiber,
Exactly. So when you're eating fruit, you're not doing that because yeah, the fiber is slowing that whole process down so the liver doesn't take a direct hit. But yeah, just people that are doing these juice cleanses, I mean, a couple days probably not a big deal. It probably will help flush some stuff out just literally by diuresis, by making you urinate. But yeah, I don't recommend people juice on a regular basis. Or really drink juice of any kind, and rather to eat fruits. So again, I mean, I think you'd be better off increasing your intake of those cruciferous vegetables, citrus fruits, berries, focusing on that rather than
So
hitting it with this
more
kind
of
of
a
like extreme
certain fruit
stuff.
and vegetable fast, but not juices. Like if I ate
Correct.
watermelon and cucumber and broccoli.
Exactly. Eat the whole fruits and the whole
Okay,
vegetables. Yeah, you can blend them up now if you want to make a smoothie, that's fine because you're still retaining that fiber. But yeah,
right.
you just want to eat the flesh of the whatever it is.
Okay.
Great
All
question though.
right.
That's because again, I could go off on the nutrition stuff for days. So yeah, great question.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, we're right about at 8:30 here, so I'm gonna let everyone go. But thank you again so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you taking your time to learn with us, and I hope you are walking away from this feeling more empowered than afraid. That that you really can have some control over this. And if if you have any other questions, especially if you want to get in a little more in depth on the nutrition aspect of all this, feel free to reach out, and we can dive into that a little bit more. But yeah, but this has been great. So thank you guys again, and I hope everyone has a great night.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add though, if this has stirred up any other ideas for you that you want to cover, it did for me. I've got a list of things here that we could, subjects that we could go over and maybe break
Yeah.
it down a little bit. So yeah,
Absolutely.
you could just text me what those are. And again, any more questions, because I do think this is going to be ongoing conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind
I
of
mean,
broke the seal, and it's like, wow.
now the floodgates have been open, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there really are so many topics that we hit on here that we could do an hour on their own. So like Connie said, if there's anything that really stuck out for you, or like, hey, I'd really like to learn more about this, definitely feel free to let us know, and that's something we can make happen.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Good night.